with him and Jimmy Johnson, talking about when they parted ways, when he came home and just wanted to lay down, and his wife said to him, just had to stick your face into it. Just had to keep sticking your nose into it and making these decisions. Kind of jumping on him, and it was good. There were some really, really good stories.
The dynamic between the two of them, which is legendary, of course, was very interesting to watch on display during that, and very warm. At some point, these things become bygones.
And I'm glad it did, because, and it's a shame that relationship couldn't continue, because I tell you what, Jimmy Johnson, as a talent evaluator, is one of the best I've seen. One of the best I've seen. When he worked with us one year before the draft, when I was working the draft more, and he got up and went on the whiteboard and how he breaks everything down and decides things. It was like a PhD in learning how to pick players, and God knows he did it so well. It was very, very cool to see.
That won a championship on the college level and the pro level. We'll see. If you look, by the way, I was glancing through. Maybe we can set aside tomorrow and do some of this. The backlog, the logjam of people who were not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame who should be, and then you will add 3 names next year that I think are Hall of Fame locks in Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, and Brian Urlacher. Not to say they're all going to get in the first year, because it's so hard to do that. I have to believe of those 3, Ray Lewis is a lock, right?
Yes.
Is he a mortal lock?
I think absolutely. I think Randy Moss is close to that. I think Urlacher's close to that. But
I do too. But Moss, not the receivers. I mean, I can't believe Terrell Owens isn't in.
Well,
I just can't believe it.
The top of the list of those that have already been eligible and not in is T.O., right? And here comes another wide receiver in Randy Moss.
Those are the two preeminent receivers of their generation. Those 2 guys.
You tell me who you want. I would take Randy Moss.
You might, but you're never. But T.O.'s been waiting, and Moss hasn't.
I'm with you.
And you're not putting them both in. It just doesn't work that way. There's no way they're both going in the same year.
I agree. And I think push comes to shove. I think T.O.'s going to be waiting another year, and Randy gets in. You think? Right off the just initial thought?
I don't know.
Because I know Randy's had some issues too. I get it. But, man, they're really holding some things against T.O.
Okay, so and then there's Urlacher, who I think has the bad timing of being a player who was a historically great player at the same position as another guy
in Ray Lewis,
who was historically greater.
Yep.
I mean, Ray Lewis is Brian Urlacher is a no-doubt slam dunk Hall of Famer.
One of the great athletes to play that position.
But Ray Lewis is the same position and greater,
Yeah.
even a slammer dunk or whatever. I don't even know how you would
quantify
a
slammer dunk.
He's more of a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I mean, if Ray Lewis has got to get in his first year, so I think that means that Urlacher probably won't. All right, we got a lot working here. Let's get Dan Le Batard into the conversation. You hear him every day, coast to coast, following us with Stu Gatz, and he is now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. Good morning, Dan Le Batard.
I love that. A slammer dunk. More than a slam dunk is a slammer dunk, and as it applies to Ray Lewis, it was very nearly the slammer dunk.
Oh, well done.
That's well played.
Well played.
Took you a second.
That's well played. All right, we have 2 big topics on the table today, and the primary one we wanted from you, especially because of your your proximity to the situation, is with the Dolphins, and they're signing Jay Cutler, and they're not signing Colin Kaepernick. Both Mike and I immediately went to Cutler's relationship with Adam Gase. Then we had your friend Bomani Jones on a little bit earlier, and he said that Miami is the one market that forget about, and I've found Stephen Ross has been fairly progressive in a lot of his comments regarding the Kaepernick's stance. But Bomani brought up the issue of the Fidel Castro T-shirt and how that is the one market that would never possibly be accepted. What is your perspective on all of this from a Kaepernick standpoint?
Yeah, there's that, and there's the relationship with Adam Gase, Cutler having his best season with Adam Gase getting this job essentially because he was the quarterback whisperer who allowed, Cutler to make fewer turnovers, which is the fatal flaw with Jay Cutler. You go all around the league, Bob McAdoo, you got a bunch of people all over the league where they get their jobs because they're the guys who can make quarterbacks a little bit better. And so you understand where it is that Jay Cutler and this relationship would make it so that all other things being equal, Jay Cutler and Colin Kaepernick feel kind of equal. We can argue about it, we can split hairs, but they feel kind of equal. And so all things being equal, if you've got a guy who's got a relationship with the coach and doesn't have a controversy that involves Fidel Castro, that guy's going to get your job.
I got that, but let me rephrase the question. If Jay Cutler wasn't in the picture, or if Jay Cutler had said no, or if Gase didn't have this relationship with Cutler, do you believe the Dolphins would have seriously considered Kaepernick?
I do, because of the things that Stephen Ross has said, because he's been very vocal. He's been one of the few owners who's been vocal about it, saying that, yeah, Kaepernick should be in our league. So, but I did find weird that Armando Salguero reports that they also considered Tebow and Kyle Orton. I mean, what's the next step on this, right? How many quarterbacks have to get hurt? We can make a plausible explanation for Miami, but are we going to always be able to make the plausible explanation? Like, are we going to be able to do this when Kaepernick gets passed over for someone like Kyle Orton? Because I don't know. I think your situation, Greeny, the Jets is the most egregious one, where you've got the owner, being ambassador to whatever, Great Britain, and a Trump supporter, and, just not anti-Kaepernick in just about every way. And then your quarterback situation is very obviously worse than what Colin Kaepernick would be there, when you've got a brittle Josh McCown, who maybe in his prime wasn't even as good as Colin Kaepernick. That's the one situation I point to. I'm like, man, that's not right. That right there is the Jets not wanting politics in their huddle.
Oh, absolutely. Let me make very clear. I mean, they're my Jets only to the extent that I root for them. But I remember having this conversation with people at the Super Bowl, that there is no conceivable chance the Jets will sign Colin Kaepernick for exactly the reason that you just said. I don't think they're the only team in that boat. I would guess there's something in the neighborhood of 20 teams in the NFL that just flat will not touch him. And from the very beginning, I said the Jets would not.
Yeah, you said that right off the bat. Dan, does Colin Kaepernick have a job this year or no?
Well, it depends on how many people get hurt in that sport, Mike. Like, I got to think eventually it'll become so egregious and obvious that you can't deny it anymore. Like, there's still people out there arguing that Colin Kaepernick isn't being shunned because he took a knee. That argument is still being made. I got to think that this is the one sport. It'd be pretty funny if the Dolphins, if Jay Cutler got hurt, which would be the most normal thing in the world behind an offensive line that has been leaky. If Jay Cutler got hurt, then are the Dolphins going to pass on Kaepernick again if Jay Cutler gets hurt? Like, how many of these do we have to go through before Kaepernick has a job? The whole thing is a little bit weird that we're already here in the middle of August with a quarterback all of us would acknowledge is one of the best 100 quarterbacks in the world.
Yeah, I think we're past that point. Honestly, Dan, I think there isn't any question that the majority of teams in the NFL are just not going to sign him, and he's going to have to find that one team that is willing to do it and needs a quarterback. Do you not agree with that?
If I may, though, Mike. No, if I may, though, you saw what happened with the Dolphins, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is actually a funny situation where you might not want to bring on Colin Kaepernick as your backup because the backup sits and might bring a bunch of whatever they call distractions and stuff. But the funny part about this is you might bring him in as your starter. If your situation is so desperate that you've got to be like the Miami Dolphins trying to coach Jay Cutler out of retirement because you're trying to save your season because you don't want to go, 2-14 because you're close. You feel like you're close, and then the quarterback gets hurt. Like, to me, the funny thing is that Colin Kaepernick is more likely to be a starter than he is to be a backup. That part is weird because that's kind of where we are. Once the need and the desperation get such, that comes first. The need and the desperation, when people have to start saving their jobs, when the customer base doesn't want to go 2-14, it's an odd situation to say, but I do think most